Hey everyone! Before we open today's file, please make sure to follow us on Instagram at d.s.radio, where you can find all the images that go along with today's case. You can drop us an email at contact.dsradio@gmail.com. You can find all of our socials in the Linktree bio on our Instagram profile, including links to merch. If you're feeling especially generous, you can join our Patreon at patreon.com/dystopian simulation radio, where you can get access to our exclusive Instagram page and make suggestions for upcoming episode topics that you would like us to cover. Speaking of Patreon, thanks to our Patreons, Riff Cult, Cropley Crab, Cash Broadus, Raspberry Jr., Jason R. Nelson, Creepy Paper, Jamie Sook, Michael Laughlin, Lindsay Keller, Mike Wright, Greer Weaver, Kelsey Carruthers, Linz Gibbon, Drake Holvig, Only Child, Michael M, Wesley Akers, Riaz K, Emily Medeiros, Pip, Heather Wynn, Graves, Devon Sweatshirt, The Ordained Sinister Minister, and Philip Hoffman.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to Dystopian Simulation Radio. My name is Chris.
And I'm Linz.
And today is a very spooky Halloween episode.
Ooh.
And as you can see, or hear, because you can't see this as a podcast, my voice is somewhere between buggered and fucked.
It's Chris's turn this week, everybody.
Yeah. So we've delayed this recording for as long as physically possible to still give me not quite enough time to finish the editing before this is out on Monday. But my voice is a lot better now. Linz, how did I sound earlier in the week?
Like Emperor Palpatine.
Yes, I did. It was both cool and awful at the same time.
Yep, I know that feeling.
But you're sounding like you're fully recovered now?
Yeah. I've been good for a couple of weeks now, I think. So, well, touch wood. You never know what's going to happen these days. The earth gets too hot and zombie viruses come back.
Oh, let's not curse anything here. Please, no. Very briefly, everybody, welcome to Dystopian Simulation Radio. We're going to jump into a Halloween episode. But firstly, please remember that if you are enjoying today's podcast, you can see all of the images over on our Instagram page, which is
d.s.radio.
And if you're feeling especially generous, you can join our Patreon page and support us that way.
At patreon.com/dystopian simulation radio, and all the links that you could ever need for us are in the Linktree link in our bio on Instagram, d.s.radio, and all the images.
Now we've got that out of the way, Linz, it is almost All Hallows. Samhain. Halloween.
Yes, I'm excited.
Which means that spooky season has crept up and we feel its cold breath on the back of our necks in the dark woods, and it says, "It's DS Radio, bitch." It is appropriate then that I will be presenting, and we shall be discussing one of the true legends of Halloween, feared from Transylvania to Timbuktu, the fanged undead monstrosity who is well into sucking the blood out of its victims. Yes, we are talking about the wolf... oh, no, fuck, that's not right. Someone's been messing with my files again. Sorry, I'll try that again. We are talking about the excellence of exsanguation, the vampire. Linz, why do vampires hate business meetings?
Oh God, it's a joke. Business meetings, vampires. God damn it, I don't know.
Because they are full of stakeholders.
That was actually good.
Linz, let's start with dinner. What do vampires like to snack on? What do they survive on generally?
Blood.
Yes.
Exclusively, isn't it? I think they can. No, they can't dine, no?
Well, I don't think so. Although in Dracula, there is a long passage about a rather fantastic roast chicken that the Count serves up.
Yes, that's what I was thinking. Like, in some accounts, it's like, yeah, exactly. He does have an exquisite meal, a succulent Chinese meal at one point, I think.
Well, blood is the classic tipple of the Transylvanian terror, but let's investigate this a little bit. Can you actually survive on blood? Firstly, to nature. Can you think of any animals that drink blood?
Bats and grandpas. I don't know. I come from a strange family. No, bats and what else? Bats, just bats. No, there's probably more. Like lizards and stuff.
Well, there is a long list, but it's mainly split up into 4 categories.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say mainly, I mean completely split up into 4 categories. So the first category is bugs.
Yeah. Oh, mosquitoes.
Yeah, mosquitoes. You've got your kissing bugs, also known as cone noses. Fleas.
Excuse me. Rewind. Kissing bugs. Cone noses.
Yeah. They're because they tend to bite you on the lips classically.
What? You already knew this? I've never heard of this in my life.
Oh, we don't have them where we're from.
Oh, okay, good.
We don't have these kind of kissing bugs where I'm from.
All right, okay.
Fleas typically drink blood.
Of course, yes.
Yeah. Including Flea from Red Hot Chili Peppers.
He probably does.
Leeches.
Oh, yeah.
Classic.
When you say animals, you never... my mind automatically goes to, like, fluffy, not, like, squirmy, horrid, but interesting things.
Well, there's a few more on the bug list. We've got ticks as well.
Oh, God.
Vampire moths.
Ooh.
And bed bugs, which I'm sure will be of comfort to everyone in the UK and France with the ongoing bed bug crisis we are facing at the moment.
I spoke to an American friend and they had no clue about the bed bugs. So do you want to like quickly recap that for anyone who doesn't know what we're talking about?
Well, bed bugs are bugs that inhabit the bed and will drink your blood. They're horrible little nasty things, but there has been an epidemic of them for whatever reason, perhaps the abnormally hot weather this summer, maybe, in France. And it has been migrating itself across the continent and all the way up to the north of France, up to the south of England.
They're on the tube.
There are loads of TikTok videos flying around them on the tube, just, taking the Piccadilly line and seeing the sights.
TikTok.
Word is, hey, word is that they're heading north. So we are battening down the hatches.
Okay, next, Chris. Next category.
The next category I have called aquatic nasties.
Like video nasties, but wet.
Yeah. So some type of sea snails will drink the blood of their victims. Lampreys, which if you've never seen them, are horrific. Have you seen a lamprey?
I don't think so.
It's essentially an eel made of teeth.
No.
Yeah, they tend to live quite deep in the sea, but what lives quite up are candriu, which are sort of a mini catfish, which also drink the blood and look suspiciously like lampreys.
Ew.
So, okay, bugs, we can generally avoid them for the most part. Mm-hmm. We've got, aquatic nasties, they stay in the sea.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad there's nothing like flying above our heads, like avians.
They might be.
That's the next category.
Vultures.
So that there are 4 types of birds that are known to drink blood in some capacity. The hood mockingbird, vampire ground finches, oxpeckers, and the Tristan thrush, or as I call it, the pingu sucker, as it is known for drinking penguin blood.
Okay. There's a lot to unpack there. I love Pingu Sucker. That's amazing. What was the other one? One of them was just called Vampire something, which is like, okay, self-explanatory.
Yeah.
What did you say?
Oxpeckers.
Oxpecker. Okay, we'll just skip that.
They will. They'll break the skin of an ox and drink its blood.
That's horrific.
Yes, the final category is mammals, and the only actual member of this category is vampire bats, which are distinct from other types of bats which do not drink blood. In fact, the vast majority of bats do not drink blood. Vampire bats are notable because they are the only known mammal that survives on a 100% diet of blood. There are 3 kinds of vampire bats: the common type, the white-ringed, and the hairy-legged.
What was that? Is that that's what type of bat you would be if we were bats? You'd be the hairy-legged bat.
Oh, yeah, you can go for the obvious jokes. Yeah. Chris is a Sasquatch. This is about vampires. Stop bringing Bigfoot in.
All right.
The drinking of blood in nature is known as hematophagy. And
sorry? Did you say that again?
Hematophagy.
Okay.
Hetomophagy. Hetomative. It's known as that.
Sounded smart when you typed it, didn't it?
It sounded it, and I even put hyphens between it, and I'm double guessing myself now. Now, you'll notice that the only mammal on that list was the vampire bat, as we discussed. So would it be possible for a human to survive on blood and blood alone? Well, this week, I have been surviving on a steady diet of room temperature blood, and I feel just awful, if I'm honest. What is happening to me?
That explains a lot. Where did you get this supply, Chris? Local hospitals.
Well, according to BBC Science magazine,
blood contains about 700 calories per litre, so an average adult would need to drink around 3 litres to meet their energy requirements each day. Would this much blood also contain enough of the essential micronutrients, though? Let's consider vitamin C as a worst-case example, because humans can't manufacture it or store it. Average blood serum levels of vitamin C are around 5 milligrams per litre, and the World Health Organization recommends at least 45 milligrams per day. So you'd need to drink 9 litres of blood to avoid getting scurvy, which would give you so many calories that you'd rapidly become overweight. If you dosed your victims with lemons before biting them, however, you could raise their serum levels to 15 milligrams per litre, and 3 litres of blood would be just enough. It's been suggested that the high iron content of blood would lead to an iron overload in vampires, but healthy humans can tolerate up to 45 milligrams of iron a day, and you'd need to drink at least 26 litres of blood to absorb that much. The real danger then? Salt. Human blood contains about 9 grams of salt per litre. Those 3 litres you're drinking each day would give you around 4.5 times your recommended daily allowance, which would lead to dehydration and kidney failure if you didn't also drink lots of water, and hypertension if you did. That was a lot more interesting than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I decided I'd include the whole quote of that in there and make you read it.
That was worth it, honestly. Okay. Right, we're going science on vampires. I like it.
Well, I mean, I guess this blood diet thing isn't going to work then. Thanks, TikTok. But vampires, they make it work. But what is a vampire and where do they come from? Well, how long you got? Vampires appear in most cultures across the world, although in vastly differing forms, from the Christopher Lee gentleman bloodsuckers to the Jiangxi Chinese hopping vampire. Today, we're focusing on the European tradition of the vampire, though, and maybe there's a Vampires of the World episode we can hop into sometime in the future. Vampires are the undead. They rise from their coffins to feed on the life force of the living, most commonly through their blood, which they extract by biting their victims with their elongated canine teeth called fangs. Here's a quandary for you, Linz. Do vampires suck up the blood through their teeth like hypodermic straws, or do they bite and then suck like a human leech? Or do they bite it and then lick the blood like a tiny kitten drinking milk?
Well, I was just, as soon as you started describing the fangs, I remembered this, like, I think it was a video or something I saw on Instagram, and a guy was like, I'm so stupid. My whole life, I thought that vampires sucked up blood with their teeth like tiny straws. But no, I'm pretty sure they bite and then suck the wounds.
Yeah, I think generally they bite and then suck on the wound. But there are various accounts out there. But who knows, really? But vampires are often portrayed in the media as suave, sexual, and the perfect hosts, aside from wanting to suck your blood.
Which is kind of hot in a way.
You do you. I'm scared to ask this question now. You've revealed that fact about yourself. But Linz, do you have a favourite vampire movie?
Oh, God, you put me on the spot here. Oh, Let the Right One In. That's good.
The original Swedish version?
Of course. What about you?
I particularly like the Christopher Lee Hammer horror ones, but I really, really liked Thirst, the Korean pop genre.
Yes, that's one of my favourites too. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
The Priest.
That's a fantastic.
Oh, God, I love that movie.
I'm due a rewatch of that.
Me
sometime.
too. Patreon, maybe?
Maybe. Well, Linz, now we're talking about famous vampires. Can you think of any famous vampires?
Dracula, of course. That's the first one that springs to mind. It's kind. Oh gosh, I rarely think about vampires.
Well, here's a handy list that I put together for you.
Thank God.
Dracula. Start again, sorry. Count Duckula.
The vegetarian vampire.
Lestat and Company from A Vampire Chronicles / Interview with the Vampire. Blade. Edward Cullen, Sparkly Vampires from Twilight.
Oh, yeah.
Spike Angel from Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Yes.
Celine from Underworld. Blackula.
Yes.
From the 70s exploitation movie of the same name. Count Graf Orlok, also known as Nosferatu.
Oh, of course.
Gangrel, Edge Christian of the Brood in the WWF.
Of course. I'm surprised you didn't say that one first, Chris.
I'm restrained. I'm restraining myself. And of course, the Count from Sesame Street. Ah, ha, ha.
You do sound like him, actually. I've never considered that before.
And that brings me on to two very important questions about Sesame Street.
Oh.
Number one, what is the Count's full name? And number two, how is the Count a surprisingly accurate portrayal of vampirism?
What's his full name? Does he have a full name?
He does. It will shock you.
Is it like, give me a hint. Will it shock me that it's ridiculous or that it's actually really good?
It's both. It's really good because it's ridiculous.
Count Jeremy Corbyn Dracula. I don't know.
What?
What is it? I need to know.
It is Count Von Count.
Oh, for God's sakes. I thought it was going to be something really, like, ridiculous. Like he just had a long list of silly names. Like,
well, I think Count Von Count's pretty good.
That is good.
That's just me.
That is good.
Ah. How is the Count a surprisingly accurate portrayal of vampirism?
Because he's... I don't know. I think I'm too autistic to answer this. I don't know what you're fishing for.
It's because he counts. Vampires are compelled to count things, especially rocks, seeds, and grains of millet in European folklore.
Excuse
me?
me?
If a family feared vampirism, they would bury the dead with a shit ton of pebbles, so they would become preoccupied with counting and sorting that they would forget all about rising from the dead.
Is this true?
It is.
Oh my gosh, I love this.
Who would have thought that Sesame Street is actually rooted in ancient European vampiric traditions?
That makes me want to rethink all the characters.
I wonder what's up with the one in the bin. What's he? Oscar the Grouch.
The Grouch, Oscar the Grouch.
I bet it's a lot deeper than we think.
An obsessive form of counting is called arithmomania and is both a real type of obsessive compulsive disorder and a fantastic name for some kind of mathematical smackdown held in a giant American football stadium. Indeed, the original tales of European vampires are peppered with unusual details like this. The original image of a vampire was somewhat different to that of today, which all those previous examples we gave really conformed to. Vampires were, many years ago, entirely different. In fact, they resembled more the modern-day idea of a zombie. They were bloated and carried a red or purple hue from their engorgement with blood, which they feasted on to the point that it would dribble from their mouths while they were sleeping.
Ooh.
They also supposedly slept with one eye open because they were huge Metallica fans.
Gripping their tombstone type. So they kind of like resembled ghouls more.
Yeah.
I'm sure we're going to get to this, but at some point they got sexy.
Oh yes, they do get sexy later on.
Okay,
They start off very unsexy, and then they hit the gym and they really glow up.
I think they probably made like the error that we made, at the beginning. Well, not us, but the BBC. Like when they went, okay, I'll just consume like copious amounts of blood and that'll do me. And then they did, and it didn't work out for them. And then somewhere along the line, like a scientist vampire has discovered like the right way. Like maybe he's condensed it into pills or something.
Guys, you need to drink your macros here, right? Just mix some blood into Huel and it'll be fine.
But that is very creepy, though, the sleeping with one eye open. Like, why they don't portray that kind of zombie in movies is, like, beyond me. Because imagine they open maybe there is a scene where they open the coffin and there's, like, one eye open, staring back at them. That would be really creepy.
The original vampires were notably obsessed with their family and were said to largely target them as their victims. Our first tale of vampirism today, the case of Peter Blagovic. Linz, would you like to take a look at our vampire?
I would love to lay my peepers on him.
Well, here you go. Feast your peepers on this bad boy.
Ooh. We got a nice, of course, black and white picture here of a handsome man, I would say. There's nothing too. He's white. He's got like a middle part slicked back hair. So he's got the pasty face and the black hair, I guess. And yeah, I mean, he looks a bit sad, but other than that, not too vampire-y. Wouldn't suspect him if he walked past me on an evening.
Well, this is Peter pre-vampirism.
Ah.
Whilst he was still a modest Serbian peasant in Kislova. Notably human-looking at this point, his life was unremarkable, but in death, he would become a legend. In 1725, Peter passed away. Yet 3 or 4 days later, there was a rap-tap-tapping at his son's door in the night. Upon answering the knocks, he was shocked to see his father standing there, who demanded that his son feed him.
Like a sandwich?
Yeah.
Okay.
So this was a vampire who did eat other things than just blood. So there they sat at the kitchen table, one living, one dead, not really talking about the whole thing and just munching on peasant snacks. Men. Peter then stood up and left without incident, but his son was understandably freaked out about his dead father, who just rocked up and demanded the pantry's Cheeto supply. So it was much to his son's dread when at roughly the same time the next evening, that rap-tap-tapping came ringing through the house again. Answering the door to his father's undead vision, this time he plucked up all his courage and proclaimed, "No, you can't stop me, father. I'm going to London to be a dancer." Shit, wrong. Oh, fuck, wrong paper again. My son's been in my files again. Sorry, that was the script I'm working on. Oh yes, he said, No, father, begone. I will not feed thee. You're dead. And with that, Peter stared a hole in his son and backed into the darkness. The next day, the son was found dead.
That's a bit extreme for a little argument, isn't it?
This became even more extreme because it began a spate of deaths in this small Serbian village, with each of the villagers complaining of exhaustion prior to being found dead the next morning when they were discovered to have lost a large amount of blood. But what linked all of these deaths to Peter? Well, the victims literally all complained that Peter was haunting them in the night prior to their death, which is pretty damning evidence, Your Honour.
I love this story, but there's so many it skips a lot, you know? It's like the first night dad comes in, let's have like a, I don't know, rat burger or something at the table. And the next night he's like, you know what? I thought about it. And no. Like maybe, because like, I don't know about what religion they were back then, but in like Catholicism, when someone dies and returns, you like in the form of someone that you like love, or you know, so if someone passes away and they show up again, that's obviously not them. It's like a demon or something. So you should never let them in. So maybe it's that kind of thing where the son was like, the next day he was like, oh, hold on, I just remembered the whole demon thing. No, you can't come in, go away forever. And then, yeah, this ghoul, vampire, whatever, wearing his dad's likeness kind of just goes, oh well, shrug, and goes ham on the entire village. Or it could actually be his deceased dad who just had some bones to pick. We've all got people we don't like.
Yeah, but your son, I mean... This set such a panic in that the peasants were literally revolting. Officials in the town tried to stall them long enough for authorities to arrive to give the official permission to exhume the dead. But this being the 1700s, the peasants were not prepared to wait weeks and allow the vampiric assault to continue. The priest and the mayor took the decision to desecrate the grave of Peter and exhume his body. And what they found shocked them. Peter was there, but his body showed no signs of decomposition after being in the ground for quite some time by this point. He was, however, full of blood, and they reportedly found it dribbling from his mouth, as if a recent feed was repeating on him. Enraged and outraged, the townsfolk drove a wooden stake through Peter's heart, at which point blood poured from every orifice, including his ears. They took his body and placed it atop a funeral pyre, burning the vampire's body to prevent him from rising ever again. All the bodies of his victims were exhumed and checked for signs of vampirism. All were then reburied with garlic and whitethorn, a type of plant, and reburied. Now this case is a real incident, although how much of it has been embellished over time is unknown. Certainly a body was exhumed somewhere, but people aren't even really sure where exactly this town was.
Oh.
So, did Peter really rise from the grave? I'm unsure. But what I can see is there are many of the vampire tropes that we know and love in this case, which is often claimed to be the first case of the vampire as we know them today. I mean, we've got the drinking of blood, a need to be invited in, an angry mob of villagers, a stake through the heart, garlic. This is hammer horror levels of vampirism.
Yeah, all the tropes. 100%.
Yeah, but I mean, Linz, before we go any further, what do you think of this case?
I really love the story. And I've never actually looked into the history of vampires, maybe a long time ago, but I didn't recall any of this. So thanks for sharing this with us. This is really good for Halloween. You are kind of creeping me out. Like this is going to play on my mind later. But as for the legitimacy of this account. I mean, like you said, there's no way to know. It probably got passed down, orally. So I don't know if there was anything like actually recorded on it at the time, but for me, it's like, okay, it's a supernatural entity, right? It's a vampire. This probably doesn't need to be explained. But like, if you're coming in and out of the coffin, wouldn't the ground be disturbed? Like, how did you manage that? How did you even open the lid with all the soil on top?
So you think about the logistics of it.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's supernatural, so like obviously who cares about the logistics of how he actually got out of the coffin? But yeah, also dead things don't bleed. So them stabbing him and him bleeding is very creepy.
Hmm.
Implied that he was living in some capacity.
I mean, you think about zombies, they traditionally kind of break their way out of their coffins.
Yeah, but they opened his
Right.
coffin and it was intact and everything, wasn't it?
It was. So exactly how they do it, well, vampires know, I guess.
Vampires. Oh, he probably has like a sort of a little shriveled assistant that comes and helps him.
100%. That's what he does. Undigs him. He unearths him every night and then pops the nails back in the coffin.
Yeah. Like an assistant who wants to be bitten, There's always one.
Always two there are, master and an apprentice.
Exactly. And you need a day walker, to do your chores and stuff during the daytime. So
You are right, in so much as it's a bit difficult to trace this case, and how much of it is folklore and how much of it is legend is probably quite a high percentage. However, would you like to hear about a case that's far more modern that we can prove happened?
nah. Of course.
Yeah. Oh, well, I'll keep it to myself then. Perhaps the most famous case of suspected vampirism is that of Mercy Brown, which occurred in 1892 in Exeter, Rhode Island, USA. Big shout out at this point to Jason Allard's video on the subject, as it helped me to orientate some of the more confusing aspects of this case. So I'd encourage you to all search out Jason Allard's video on this and give it a watch, credit where credit is due. As with the Blagovich case, in the 1700s, people were just generally terrified of vampires. And they were quite ready to blame the deaths of anybody on our spooky friends. Much like the Salem witch trials 200 years earlier, vampires were the root cause of any unexplained death. At the time, tuberculosis, or consumption as it was known then, was running wild and was poorly understood. The infection will quickly pass between a family, but the cruelty of the disease is that it can take months or years before somebody shows symptoms, and even longer before they pass. In 1882, the matriarch of the Brown family, Mary, passed away. She had 7 children with her husband George. The eldest, Mary Olive Brown, passed away 2 years later of consumption. Then, in 1889, the eldest and only son of the family, Edwin, began displaying all the signs. Unexpectedly, though, it was the middle daughter, Mercy Lena Brown, who was next to die after suddenly falling ill. Linz, could you describe Mercy Brown to us?
Of course. Oh, she's very pretty. She has kind of a stern expression in this picture, but yeah, she looks really kind. She has black dark hair tied up off her face. And yeah, just sort of an average looking lady.
Yes, thank you very much for that description. She's got a striking look about her, definitely. The father of the Brown family, George, was distraught at having lost 3 members of his family inside of 7 years and facing the prospect of his only son being added to the list. The locals and people close to George convinced him to give permission to the authorities to have the bodies of the 3 women exhumed to check for signs of undead activity. Mary and Mary Olive showed all the telltale signs of being dead. They didn't move, they didn't speak, and they were largely just bones. And there were no reports of skeletons plaguing the area. Mercy Brown, however, was a different story. She was not yet buried, being kept in an above-ground crypt until the ground thawed. Her body, despite being dead for 8 weeks by now, showed no signs of decomposition. It was in mint condition, and the bones were still in their original packaging.
Chris.
Her face was still flush, and her heart still contained blood. Blood, just so you know, generally follows gravity when your heart stops beating and pools around the point closest to the ground. This would be your back, presumably if you died on your back. But it's quite unlikely to pool in the heart itself. It isn't unheard of, but for the villagers, this was all they needed to cry, "Vampire!" My voice broke like a teenager working at McDonald's there. And began the ritual, which they hoped would stop Mercy from rising from the grave at night and sucking the life force from young Edwin until he eventually died, which was the obvious explanation for what was going on here. Not that she had been kept essentially outside for 8 weeks in winter.
Yes. I was just going to say that, so I'm glad you did.
The villagers extracted Mercy Brown's heart and liver. They burned them, and then the ashes were mixed with water and fed to Edwin to alleviate his condition.
Where did they get this recipe from?
It's an old wives' tale.
Is it just a thing? Oh, okay, right. Nice.
Hi, son. Hi. Just drink the ashes of your dead sister from her recently defiled grave and the extraction of her perfectly preserved organs, okay? Bed by 9.
They probably just put it in a froob, to be honest, Chris.
Dad, why does this ice cream taste weird?
It's a matcha.
Well, guess what, Linz?
Yes, Chris?
Absolutely worked.
What?
Yes, it worked 100%. It cured him of his tuberculosis.
No!
He did not turn into a vampire. And he went on to live a long and successful life as a local anchorman for the local TV station that didn't yet exist. No,
Okay.
no, none of that, especially the last bit, is true. Edwin died later that same year.
Oh, I was hoping it was like a fluke kind of, he just kind of got through it somehow, and then they were like, wow, it worked, and everyone did it forever, but no.
Well,
Great.
of the 7 Brown children, 6 would perish due to consumption. George, the father, he actually never contracted it, and he died of natural causes in 1922, 1 year after the first human application of the BCG vaccine, widely used to cure tuberculosis.
Oh, man. That's kind of a curse on him, to be honest. Like, you watch all of your children go. Oh, my God, that's terrible.
It's poetic.
I wonder why he didn't get it. I wonder what the thing is with that.
I think some people just have natural immunity / luck to things. You never know. Generally, it passes very, very between family members with no problem at all. Obviously, one of the other children never contracted it either. So I guess they were just lucky. One last note on Mercy Brown. Her gravestone is anchored to the ground now. Not for fear of her escaping and rising from the dead, but for fear of theft after several attempted nabbings.
Nabbings?
I couldn't think of another word for stealing.
Do you mean like grave robbings?
Literal grave robbings. Not as in robbing from the coffin, but as in stealing the gravestone.
Oh, okay. Oh, because it's so cool.
Yeah, because it's a well and known and widely reported vampire case, and yeah, a few people have stolen it previously, and it has been eventually returned.
God, imagine how I don't even want to know how they located it. But they were probably selling it somewhere. Oh God, that's terrible.
Well, I would hazard a guess that they probably got caught on the way out of the cemetery because those things are bloody heavy.
Just on a skateboard with a towel wrapped around it.
Nothing to see here. So, Lynn's thoughts on the Mercy Brown case and also on tuberculosis?
I don't know that much about TB. I know that it still exists in some parts of the world because they don't use the vaccine. I'm pretty sure it still exists in some places. But I don't know much about TB. Like, what does it actually do to you?
If you contract tuberculosis, at some point you will start coughing and coughing and coughing and coughing and coughing and coughing until you start coughing up blood. And when you start coughing up blood, that's when the consumption has truly taken hold of you, and you do not have too much longer left after that. I'm not going to
Chris,
spoil it.
is there something you haven't told me? Have you got the consumption, Chris? Don't leave me.
I went to see my doctor, and he told me that I have the consumption, but I haven't eaten anything all day.
We can't laugh at this. This is so mean. Yeah, the cure, that really threw me off. I can see that. I can see if you didn't have another option. Like, there is sort of something to it, like extracting a bit of a disease and inoculating someone with it in one way or another. But I mean, yeah, we learned about the Black Stone. Remember that in the Arnold the Cannibal King case, which was almost the science.
Oh, yes.
That eventually became vaccines and stuff. But I guess people had some kind of like theory on what to do, but they hadn't nailed it. They hadn't nailed it yet. But yeah, just kind of going, well, we'll give this a go. We've got nothing else to do. And I think the first vampire case was a lot, probably because it's fabricated. It's probably a lot more exciting than this one.
A little bit. As we get closer and closer to modern day, they become a little bit less extreme, these vampire cases. There's a lot less spooky castles and lightning
pizzazz.
crashing in the distance. Well, speaking of pizzazz, of course, the origin of our idea of vampires is the novel Dracula by Bram Stoker. By the way, Bram stands for Abraham.
Oh, so he just his pen name was like his nickname, Bram. He sounds like that makes him sound like a jock or something. Yeah. It's a cool name though, Bram Stoker.
The previous two cases are believed to potentially be some of the inspiration taken by Stoker when researching and writing the book. He did do copious and indeed years of research before he put pen to paper with Dracula. Now, many cite Vlad the Impaler as the inspiration, although that was really just the name, Vlad the Impaler's real name being Vlad Dracula, which this links the two together. Linz, have you ever read Dracula?
Yes, a long time ago. I have, yeah. A lot of letter writing.
Yes.
It's just a lot of letters. But yeah, and
Jonathan Harker's journal.
Exactly. And was it Mina? I can't remember
Yes, Mina.
His girlfriend's name. Yeah, a lot of
I think his girlfriend's Lucy, but Mina is another character.
Yes, okay, yeah. Mina was more interesting.
I had actually never read it, and I wanted to read it in the run-up to this episode, but I didn't have that much time, so I decided to skip to the end and listen to the book on tape.
That's great, though. I've been listening to audiobooks too, so it saves a lot of time.
Yes, it certainly does. And guess what? Guess who read it?
Hopefully not Keanu Reeves.
No. It was read by Christopher Lee himself.
Ooh,
It is up there for free on YouTube. So go and check that out.
great. I was listening to The Exorcist recently, but anyway, back to the vampires.
Is that just Tubular Bells?
No.
Well, the novel itself, actually, I found out, is in the public domain. So
Mhm.
I'm thinking maybe we should do an all-star cast reenactment of it.
Oh
You
my
and I,
gosh. At least
September.
yes, but
Aaron
at
and
least
Justin from Gen Y.
at least like the good chapters.
Yes, the abridged version.
Yes.
Maybe next year.
Maybe.
Regardless, the novel tells the tale of Dracula, who moves to England and is hunted by Abraham Van Helsing. I just realised that he's got the same first name. That Abraham Van Helsing and Abraham Stoker.
Oh.
I just clocked that right there. A bit like, and this one's going to blow your mind, Luke Skywalker and George Lucas.
Oh my God. Ego.
It's like poetry. It rhymes. There is much more to the novel than that, but I'm summarising here. The novel popularised the notion of the vampire and was soon adapted for the silver screen. Early films such as Nosferatu were heavily inspired by Dracula, and others, such as Universal's version, called simply Dracula, starring Bela Lugosi. On our side of the pond, the Hammer horror movies famously had Christopher Lee play Dracula no less than 7 times. Even in our modern day, Dracula has just been remade and remade, from the Gary Oldman, Keanu Reeves version in the 90s to just this year when Renfield was released with Nicolas Cage and Nicholas Hoult. I mean, honestly, it's in the public domain. It's a free script by this point, so people just won't let it die.
Yeah, true.
Now, every vampire movie has drawn some kind of inspiration from Dracula, whether it be the appearance of vampires or the method that it takes to stop them. We'll come back to that in a moment. But first, while we're talking about movies, we should also mention that in the 80s and 90s, we saw a huge resurgence in vampire movies after falling out of fashion since their heydays. And this coincided with the AIDS crisis.
Oh.
The overtly sexual nature of vampires in the modern day only adds to this metaphor. Picture this. A lovely lady is going to bed with her neck all exposed, only for a vampire to fly in through the window and seduce her. At the last moment, instead of going in for a kiss, he goes in for a hickey and passes on the deadly disease of vampirism. It's no surprise that as the horrific rise of AIDS and HIV took hold, that an uptick in vampire movies also began. It was a safe way for the disease to be discussed, in a roundabout way, of course. All monsters feed into our fear of something. That's why they're monsters after all. But the vampire has been given a second life through the rise of blood-borne infections. It's likely that the vampire itself was originally born out of diseases such as rabies and tuberculosis that were not understood by people at the time. A plague spreading is rife for creating a vampiric panic amongst villagers, after all. Through this lens, we can also view the vampire as an allegory for sickness, whether that be the age-old ones or our modern examples. But that would also mean that vampires aren't real, and that would make this next section a whole lot less fun. So, Linz, as promised, let's return to how do you stop a vampire? What methods do you know of to halt or kill a vampire in its rather smart shoes?
Okay, holding up a crucifix. That's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
Light, throwing open the curtains so they can go and like turn into dust.
Just like a teenage boy, yes.
Yes. Stake through the heart, of course.
But you're too late, and you give vampires a bad name.
Beautiful. Always good
Thank
to get
you.
a little bonus song from Chris in the episode. I know September loves those little bonus singing clips, so enjoy that, Michael. Okay, what
I'm
else do you
winking
do?
at you. You hear my
What else?
wink?
What else do you do? Crucifix, light, stake through the heart. I guess mirrors don't kill them, but they kind
Mm-hmm.
of don't like them.
You'll tick. Yeah, I mean, it'll help to
Yeah,
stop them.
so let's say silver in that case.
Okay.
Garlic. They don't like garlic, do they?
No, they don't. They're picky eaters.
Yeah, I mean, who doesn't like garlic? I guess it's good for your heart, and they don't have one.
I mean, they do have a heart.
No
It's
way, they're
just
dead. It'll be all shriveled up and dead in there.
well.
To be honest,
they're
I
not
don't know the
dead.
biology of a vampire. God knows what they've got going on in there.
I'm going to say that they do have a heart because you have to drive a stake through it.
Oh, shoot, yeah, you're right. So it's got a beating heart, so they are alive.
I don't know if it's beating.
Yeah, but
Anyway, we're getting much too technical.
Yeah, true. Okay, let's keep this basic. I think that's about it, isn't it?
Well,
Garlic, steaks,
let me fill in some gaps for you here.
Okay.
So, firstly, let's go for this little list that I have. First one is garlic. And there's a theory that this seems to have developed from the rabies infection, which was also the inspiration for zombies, if you've gone back and listened to our episode on those shambly boys, that those infected with rabies display a strong aversion to pungent smells and tastes, of which garlic is a classic and natural example. Vampires do hate the smell of garlic, and this is why there are no Italian vampires.
What?
You can use garlic to ward away vamps, but not to kill them.
Okay.
Other plants that vampires dislike, this is quite a long list. Roses, blackthorn, buckthorn, hawthorn. They are not a fan of thorns. Holly, so that would mean that Christmas is always vampire-free. Juniper, mayflower, mustard seed, I understand that one. Rowan, wolfsbane, and nightshade. And the final one might kill them, but it would also kill us, so it's a bit of a risk to use it.
Okay, so not a fan of flowers.
No. Vampires, it seems, are kind of horticultural Nazis. So I'm going to bet if you keep just your average garden, you might be in luck, and it'll probably just keep the blighters away by itself.
Thank God.
You're going to go plant all of that right now, aren't you?
I've got most of that. Maybe not the wolfsbane and things, but yeah. The roses will be the first line of defense.
Mirrors, as you mentioned. Vampires hate mirrors, and it will temporarily stun them. And I feel the same when I see myself in the mirror, because goddamn, if this isn't the voice for radio.
But it's the silver in the mirrors, isn't it? They used to make mirrors with silver. Not now, but they used to.
I don't believe... maybe.
Yeah.
That's an interesting theory. But I believe it's just because they do not have a reflection.
Oh, but that's the whole
this
silver
annoys
thing,
them
isn't it?
So much that they back off for a bit. I don't believe so. Well, I didn't read about that in any of my research. I'm not...
Well, I've done some work in the field.
I'm not going to completely dismiss that. So yes, they just generally do not like mirrors, and they do not have them in their abodes. In the novel Dracula, he famously has no mirrors at all and breaks John Harker's shaving mirror.
Yes.
Now the next one we discussed before, counting. Filling the coffin with many small pebbles will cause a vampire to begin counting all of them, which means in theory that you should have time to escape.
I love that one. I do. And it would, if you fill your coffin with loads of pebbles or rocks too, it would never float up to the surface during a storm. So that's kind of a practical reason to do it as well.
Oh, exactly. I mean, I would suggest if you are in danger of encountering a vampire, just carry your average sort of bag of Tesco rice with you and just spill it all over the floor.
Yeah, instead of a circle of salt, you just do a circle of rice.
Yeah. Van Helsing used rice. It's super effective. Now, this next one, just stick with me. A brick between the teeth.
Yeah, I mean, the vampire's teeth, not your teeth, right?
Okay. Yeah, not your own teeth, no. If you If you can get close enough to insert a brick or stone into the gob of the vampire, then they might mindlessly chew on it for a while if they're especially dumb, or they might not. I don't recommend this one. It seems pretty stupid.
Yeah, I mean, in a stitch.
It's a last resort.
Yeah.
It's your Papa Roach approach.
New phrase coined.
Right, the next one. Crucifix. These will repel vampires and Linz alike, and in some stories will burn the vampire's skin when placed upon it.
Yes.
So maybe if you had a lot of crosses balanced on top of the vampire or one really big crucifix, it might kill them, but it's highly unlikely to end them permanently.
But enough time to make a getaway, maybe.
Along a similar note, Van Helsing in Dracula makes heavy use of holy wafers, which
Holy wafer, you've been down too long.
which I'm sure is something much more impressive than it sounds like, but I'm just thinking of like a wafer that you'd get in an ice cream.
No, it's literally a wafer. It's when when you go up and you get the wine, the blood of Christ, and then you get the wafer, the body of Christ.
No, I mean, vaguely, I was not raised Catholic.
Lucky you. I think they do have crosses on them. So that's probably why.
Okay. Fair enough. The next one along our holy lines is holy water. This will also burn a vampire and is objectively easier to get onto the skin of one, especially if you have a 1996 Super Soaker CPS 2000 Mark II, which can shoot a stream of holy water up to 55 feet. I never got that for Christmas.
Very Lost Boys.
Still, this is likely only to repel the vampire temporarily. The Pope, of course, could bless a large body of water, but he never has because he's surrounded by garlic and crucifixes. Sunlight. Vampires mostly come out at night.
Mostly.
This is actually a modern invention and can be traced back to the movie Nosferatu.
Oh, okay.
In most stories, vampires can go out in the sun just fine and might even sparkle in some movies.
Aww.
Now the next one. We're bringing out the big guns here. Stake through the heart. And traditionally, this stake will be made of hawthorn or ash, and we've driven straight through the vampire's heart. And to be fair, anything will do that's sharp enough.
Could you do a knife through the heart?
Yes. Anything that's sharp enough is a surefire way to send the vampire back to the afterlife. But should you want to be especially sure, the next one is decapitate and burn. This one will do it. If you cut its head off and set the bugger on fire. Simple and effective. I've just solved your vampire problem, miss. That'll be 900 quid plus VAT and the call-out fee, please. And finally, a sacred bullet.
A sacred bullet? Is that like a bullet filled with garlic powder with a cross engraved on it?
You are going a lot more werewolf.
Oh, yeah.
On that. So they normally have crosses etched on them, and they are made of silver. However, it does not have to be made of silver for a vampire.
Huh.
It just has to have been a regular old bullet blessed by a priest. So I say, get down to church on a Sunday and get the bishop to do a job lot and rock up with a Gatling gun. Take this, Drac.
You could like do a missile, couldn't you? A vampire-seeking missile.
Excuse me, Holy Father. Could you just bless this cruise missile?
Ka-chunk.
Hey, Dracula. Suck on this.
You're in a roll.
So, Linz, as we draw this Halloween episode to a close, we're left with one very important question.
Yes.
Linz, do vampires still exist today?
Yeah. Well, I want them to, but not in the ghoulish original form, in the kind of... I'd kind of like to be a vampire. I don't think that answers the question if they exist or not, but I'd like to be one, especially now that I know they can walk in the sun.
Well, I might have some good news for you. They do kind of exist.
But are they bats?
They're definitely a little bit batty.
Okay. Oh, is it like a subculture?
It's a subculture.
Oh, God.
So some people choose to live their lives as vampires, but most don't drink blood.
What's the point of that? Are they psychic vampires that just drain your emotions whenever you hang out with them?
Now, it is very funny that you mentioned that is actually one of the classifications of a modern vampire, psychic vampire.
Okay.
So some people do live their lives as psychic vampires, and they take joy from sucking the life energy out of people for just being absolutely bloody miserable.
A lot of them in offices, isn't there?
No comment. Well, vampirism is a lifestyle to some. It's a way of life and a way of playing out a fantasy. And these people are known as vampires, sometimes with a Y, or lifestylers. And there are others who do drink small quantities of blood.
Boo.
These vampires are known as sanguines or sanguinarians, and there is generally a very clear distinction between the two. I would hazard a guess, although I do not claim to be an expert, as the difference being between those who want to take part in a fantasy and those who want to take that fantasy a step further into reality. For some, it is a love of the aesthetic. For others, it's an overtly sexual thing. It is important to know, though, that goth does not mean vampire,
No.
and actually vice versa as well. If the type of music that you listen to made you a vampire, we would both be cursed to walk the earth as vampires for all eternity.
Yes.
I think, though...
Actually, Chris, let's not skip past that. That would be lovely.
Okay. Oh, okay. Just to walk through. I mean, yeah.
Oh, that would be
good.
It would be such a good movie too. Just you and I existing in the event of the end of the world and everyone else's death, just going around.
We'll still be doing this podcast.
Oh yeah, even if there was like no one listening, we'd still just do it. Oh, cute.
Just in case.
Just in case some people start popping up around the world somewhere.
You never know. I don't think, though, that I am the best authority to be talking about modern vampires. It can be best explained by Don, this extremely handsome Squidward-looking vampire emperor, in his appearance on the Tyra Banks show.
Oh, yes.
Vampires are real?
Yes, we are a real community that exists. The practice has been around for quite a long time. I should lead in to say that you have the Hollywood movies and things like that actually cast a certain negative stereotype. We are, some of us actually have a religious faith, I guess you'd say.
What's yours?
I'm an eclectic. An eclectic would be someone who would...
I thought he was going to say, I'm a Pentecostal.
Well, if you were to define an eclectic, it would be a person who would study up on all the different main religions of the world, to be able to get a higher perspective or understanding, I guess you say, of the higher being, that we all are connected to.
And there's 3 different types of vampires.
Yes, there is.
Tell me about the first type.
The first kind would be considered a blood feeder. The definition would be called a sanguinarian. And the sanguinarian, as they feed on the blood is a rudimentary means of being able to transform the life force energy, per se.
So tell me, what's the second type?
The second kind would be the psychic vampire, what we call Psi for short. And that would be a person who has pretty much gone away from the blood. Blood these days is considered a taboo subject, you know what I mean? And it's blood,
It's just blood.
But at the same time, it's a transference of the life force energy without touching someone or just by laying of the hands and such.
Okay, and then the third type is the hybrid, which means both.
Yes.
Which type are you?
I am a hybrid.
You're a hybrid.
Correct.
So you drink people's blood?
Correct. Actually, let me expound upon that. It wouldn't be anybody who would, of course anybody can catch, certain things like HIV and any other types of diseases and such. I wouldn't want to be feeding off of someone who, per se, has any type of psychotropic drugs inside of them and such,
Psychotropic, what does that mean? Break it down.
Well, you'd have Vicodins.
Heroin.
Heroin,
crack.
whatever. Definitely wouldn't, just as you wouldn't either or whatever.
Just like I wouldn't either. Just like I wouldn't bite somebody's neck that had some drugs in them.
Tyra.
okay. I know you're nervous. You're not.
So there you go. A literal interview with the vampire.
Yeah. Honestly, he looks. I mean, people try to look like vampires, like she said, putting on makeup and everything, but he just naturally does look like one. I mean, the hair helps and the teeth, but his face structure and the high cheekbones and his like if this interview was like recent, you'd swear that was buccal fat removal.
Yeah, he is. He's quite. He seems very well spoken.
Yeah.
He seems like if he had short hair and no thangs, you'd be like, oh, that's Jim from IT.
Exactly.
He just seems like
he definitely works in IT.
yeah. He just seems like your normal everyday fellow. But then you realise that yes, he lives his life as a vampire, but he seems to be doing it unapologetically, and also, very very importantly, he's doing it only with willing participants. I won't even use the word victims, participants.
Yeah, it was.
As he's very clear to point out.
Yeah, he seems like a nice guy. It was just kind of like, some spiritual kind of new age religious stuff, I think, energies and all that. It's kind of like you hear that repackaged in a lot of different ways. But this is kind of like that with a vampire spin on it and a bit of a cooler aesthetic, I suppose, depending on what you're into. But he does look very cool. I agree with you.
Well, does this mean then that you've been convinced by this well-spoken and handsy vampire? Are these people real vampires? And does this mean we have our first confirmed case of a true real-life cryptid on DS Radio?
I so badly want to say yes, but I think we need to dig for more future cases of vampires first.
It's hard enough finding these ones.
Yeah. I don't know, Chris. I love the folklore, and I'm holding on to that for dear life because it's just so freaking cool. But I don't think the guy on Tyra is the the guy to convince me that vampires are real. I think it's just like I said, another sort of spirituality packaged in goth packaging, let's say.
Yeah.
But
I do wonder. I did look him up.
Okay.
He's still
all
going.
right.
Still very much leading the vampire lifestyle. Hold on, I'm actually going to just bring it up here. Donald Wayne Henry is his actual name.
Donald, not so vampire-y. Wayne Henry?
No.
Okay.
Maybe. But he's known for his role in the sci-fi reality show Mad House. Prior to this, he worked nights as a microelectronics engineer in San Diego.
Hey, we were pretty close.
He's now 48.
Ooh. Does he still look as young as he did in the interview? That would confirm to me that he was a vampire.
I'm trying to find out. I mean, he still looks pretty good. He cut his hair short at one point.
No.
And I think he's finding to go on his social media so I can find something recent. Vampire Don. He's got a Twitter.
He's got a Twitter.
He's got a Twitter. Oh, fuck me, he's swole.
Ooh, send me.
Oh, fuck me. He also is a karate teacher, apparently.
Oh, that is so him. That is so Don.
Yeah. So this is this is not a latest. This is from a couple of years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And the caption is "First time back at the gym since COVID." He's got to have an Instagram, man.
Oh, Jesus.
Getting swole.
Whoa. Yeah, he just looks the same, but massive. All right.
Okay, he doesn't. Come on, man.
Have you just fell in love with Don's Twitter feed?
He's
Chris,
okay.
snap out of it. It's working on you. You've been staring into Don's eyes too much.
Yeah. This should have been 2010. Oh. How are you gone? Here you are.
Oh, he looks like a completely different person.
See? Yeah.
Oh man, his bone structure, like that, he was just meant to be a vampire.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Isn't it? Like, people would kill for those fucking cheekbones.
Yeah, that's crazy.
He's literally handsome.
It is, honestly. Good for him.
Right. Yes. Anyway.
Enough drooling over Don.
So, Linz.
Yes.
Closing thoughts on vampires. This is obviously a heavy hitter in the, would you call them cryptid? The monster world? Who knows?
I wouldn't call them a cryptid. But people class strange things as cryptids these days. So.
What are your thoughts after hearing this evidence? Are you more convinced, less convinced of vampires?
I can't say the earlier stories convinced me. I think that was just people going, and then just kind of making sure the ghouls they worry about don't come to get them and doing kind of strange rituals.
Yeah.
Don, although he's very hot, I don't think he's a vampire. And he does have a reflection. I can see his mirror selfie here that you've sent to me.
God damn it, he's outed himself.
He has. So, I was slightly on board, but now that I've seen that mirror selfie, I've got to tell you, Chris, from the evidence we have and the file you've presented today, I don't think vampires are real because of Don's mirror selfie.
Fair enough. I might have put the wrong bit of evidence forward there. I do think though that unlike any other creature that we've looked into, the vampire's the only one that you can really live your life as. It's difficult to live your life as a ghost.
But you've been living yours as a Sasquatch.
Oh, there we go. But if somebody says, well, I'm a Sasquatch. Now I'm living my life as a Sasquatch. It's like, well, what does that mean? It just means people take blurry photographs of them. It doesn't mean anything. Oh, I'll live my life as a ghost. What do you walk around going, ooh, like? But with the vampire, there's so much lore about what they do and how they survive and what they need. And obviously, there's a very certain type of aesthetic that goes along with sort of goth and steampunk that has risen up over the years. That really fits into it. I mean, if you look at something else, like people don't identify as Frankenstein.
Believe me, Chris, somebody out there probably does.
Well, okay, en masse they don't.
No. But I think vampires are easier, aren't they, to LARP as because they just look like us, but they're slightly spooky.
Yeah. 100%. And as he pointed out in that clip that we watched, he got his teeth extended and filed down. It's a very small modification that you have to make, unlike if you're a Sasquatch getting a full hair body transplant, getting your knees broken to extend your size and everything.
But you just need to shave your face.
Oh. Look at me, I'm Linz, I've got one joke.
Ooh, hurts, does it?
You wouldn't know what it was like to bring more than one joke to one of these shows.
All right, dad puns.
Hey, thank you all for listening and for enduring my voice. And please say a prayer for me who had to edit this bloody thing with me coughing every 30 seconds. I will be up until God knows what time doing this. But hey, it's what we do. It's what we do. So it's fine. Thank you very much. And we will see you next time, 2 weeks later. And at that point, it's going to be one of your episodes.
Yes. Oh, also, before we close out this episode, we have a song from Septembrio. And
Oh,
it's a song, it's a cover. So he's covered Party Time by 45 Grave, which was on the Return of the Living Dead soundtrack. Awesome movie, Punks and Zombies. Can't complain. And Michael has his own version. It's for, I don't know if I can say what it's for. He's going to have to come out with that. But we at DSR get to listen to it before a lot of other people. So we'll let Septembrio play you out. And thanks so much, Chris, for presenting this episode. It's been awesome. And of course, happy Halloween! Ooh. Bye.
Play this.
56, drinking beer, driving fast. This party is their last.
And how is Viscount a surprisingly accurate portrayal? Oh.
I think you've been possessed by Bill the Poltergeist, to be honest. You've not been the same since.